Let's dive into one of the wildest crypto stories you'll hear all year. We're talking about a token called MYX Finance. It basically came out of nowhere and then did something that, honestly, just broke the charts.
And this is the number that started it all, 150x. In just 3 months, the value of this thing multiplied by 150. I mean, a move that big doesn't just get people's attention. It makes everyone ask, what on earth is going on?
So what was it? Was this some kind of game-changing new tech that nobody saw coming? Was it just a massive viral hype train? Or was there something a lot more calculated happening right under our noses? Okay, so to really get a grip on just how insane this was, you have to appreciate the scale of this move. This wasn't a nice, steady climb. Nope, this was a rocket ship.
Just look at this. In June, MYX Finance was this tiny, little $10 million project, barely a blip on the radar. Fast forward to September, and its market cap had exploded to over $1.5 billion. It went from a nobody to a giant, practically overnight.
And this thing moved fast. I mean, at its peak, the token shot up over 900% in just 1 week. That's almost a 10x return in 7 days. You see numbers like that, and it's impossible not to get sucked into the drama.
Of course, when a coin goes vertical like that, the internet just goes nuts. So what was the chatter? How were people even trying to make sense of this while it was happening?
This quote from Jacob Crypto Berry pretty much sums it up, right? It's absurd. It's absolutely insane. Even the people who watch this stuff for a living were just completely floored. It was moving so fast and so hard, it didn't seem to follow any of the normal rules.
And this created this wild mix online. On one hand, you had pure hype. People were shouting, "This is it, alt season is here." But on the other hand, you had the technical guys looking at their charts and the indicators were just flashing bright red. They were screaming that the token was overbought like crazy, which is basically code for, this has gone up way too much, way too fast. So you had all these analysts just saying, look, be careful out there.
But that hype, that was just the surface level story. Because when the on-chain detectives started digging into the blockchain's public ledger, they found something really, really weird.
And this, right here, is where the whole mystery takes a huge twist. The price chart was telling one story, a story of insane demand. But the actual data? Who actually owned this stuff? Well, that was telling a completely different story.
And here is the first massive red flag. You've got a project that's supposedly worth $1.5 billion, but it's only held in about 26,000 wallets. I mean, for a project of that size, you'd expect to see hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of holders. That tiny number was a huge clue that something was off.
And then came the smoking gun. This is it, the single most important piece of data in this entire puzzle. On-chain analysis showed that a mind-blowing 98.49% of the entire supply of MYX was held by just 20 wallets. 20. That means a tiny handful of players had almost complete control over the entire thing.
The analyst Marcellus, who unearthed this, didn't mince words. He basically said, be extremely careful. When you see that kind of concentration, it's a giant warning sign that the game is probably rigged.
So this crazy concentration of coins, it wasn't just a red flag. It turns out it was the key to understanding the entire price pump, because this story had nothing to do with fundamentals.
I mean, when people looked for a real reason for this surge, they came up empty. Was money pouring into the platform? Nope, that was stagnant. Were a ton of new investors jumping in? No, that was flat too. Was there some cool new tech update? Well, the code hadn't been touched in years. The project itself was basically collecting dust.
So if it wasn't real growth or new buyers, what the heck was it? Well, the answer is so counterintuitive you're not going to believe it. The fuel for this massive fire, it actually came from the people who were betting the price would go down.
And that brings us to this idea of a short squeeze. It's a classic market maneuver. Basically, you have traders betting a price will fall, but if the price starts going up instead, they're forced to buy back the asset to cut their losses. And that forced buying just pushes the price even higher, creating this crazy feedback loop.
So here's how the play likely went down. Step 1. Regular traders see this insane pump and think, no way this is real. So they start betting against it. They short it. Step 2. The market makers, probably the same folks holding 98% of the coins, take the other side of those bets. Then, step 3.
They use their huge supply to nudge the price up on the open market. This triggers liquidations for the short sellers, forcing them to buy back at a massive loss. And that forced buying, step 5, is what sends the price into the stratosphere, making a fortune for the market makers. It's a brutal but effective playbook.
And the amount of money involved here was just staggering. All told, over $50 million worth of short positions got absolutely wrecked, liquidated during this surge. That's $50 million that went straight from the pockets of those betting on a crash to the architects of the squeeze.
So what do we take away from all this? I mean, what does the bizarre saga of MYX Finance really teach us about how these markets work?
Well, it really comes down to two totally different stories being told at the same time. You had the hype story, 10x in a week, to the moon. And then you had the data story, which was saying 98% held by 20 wallets. No growth. This is all driven by liquidations. Two sides of the very same coin.
And I think that's the real lesson here. An extreme price move isn't always about a project being great or getting popular. Sometimes it's about complex, almost hidden market mechanics. It's about who has the power, who has the liquidity, and who knows how to play the game.
Which leaves us all with a pretty tough question, right? In a market that's so driven by speculation, where the line between a genuine opportunity and incredibly sophisticated manipulation is just so blurry, how do you ever tell the difference? That's the challenge.